I want you to picture something for a second. You're driving to work, same route as always. You stop at a red light. You don't even think about stopping. You just do it.
Right, the autopilot kicks in.
Exactly. You walk into your office, you smile at the reception, not because you're actually feeling happy, but just because, well, that's what you do. You sit down, you open your email, and you start typing. And it's more than just a habit, isn't it? It's this weird, nagging sensation that you're following a script you really didn't write. Like there's this invisible web of rules and expectations that's just steering you. And you're technically in control, but it sure doesn't feel like freedom.
No, it doesn't. That is a very specific type of existential dread, honestly. And it's actually the perfect entryway into what we're covering today. It's that feeling of being caught in a matrix.
Which brings us to the stack of papers on our literal and metaphorical desk right now. We are doing a deep dive into a set of notes from Ron W Rathbun, and the title is Karma and the Mind.
It's a fascinating document.
It really is. I have to admit, when I first saw the word karma, my brain went straight to, incense and the whole what goes around comes around idea. But reading through this, I mean, this feels like a mechanic's manual.
A manual for the human experience, really. It's surprisingly structural. He's not giving a sermon here. He's essentially popping the hood. He's looking at what he calls the societal matrix and breaking down how invisible forces, specifically karma and the mind, are actually the things pulling the strings of our daily life.
So that is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to decode this manual. We need to understand the distinction Rathbun makes between the laws of society, the stuff we can actually see, and the spiritual karma of emotions.
And the ultimate goal is figuring out how to find what he calls the individual mind.
Right, because apparently that is the escape hatch.
It's the difference between being a character in the story and actually being the author.
I love that. Waking up from the matrix. It sounds huge, but as we go through this, I think you'll see it's actually about how you handle like a Tuesday afternoon when the internet goes down.
Exactly.
So let's start with the setting. Rathbun describes our world as a societal matrix. What exactly does he mean by that?
Well, he defines the societal matrix pretty literally as the structure governed by civil and criminal laws. This is the layer of reality we all just agree on.
The rule book.
Right. You stop at red lights to avoid a ticket. You pay your taxes so the IRS doesn't come knocking. You don't steal because you don't want to go to jail. It's the framework designed to keep order.
Okay, so that's Civilized World 101. We give up some absolute freedom, like, the freedom to drive 100 miles per hour through a neighborhood so that we don't have total chaos. That makes complete sense.
It does. But here's the catch. And this is Rathbun's first major critique of how we live. He notes that it is common for people to live completely absorbed in this matrix. We get so hyper-focused on navigating these external rules, on being a law-abiding citizen or a successful person by society's standards, that we become completely unconscious of the fact that we are being controlled by them.
So we're so busy playing the game that we just forget we're in a game. They're just following the external script, ticking boxes.
Precisely. But then he introduces the twist. He says this societal matrix isn't just ruled by police officers and judges. It is also ruled by a second hidden layer, something he calls spiritual karma.
Okay, let's unpack this term, spiritual karma. Because like I said, karma usually implies some sort of cosmic scoreboard. I steal your lunch money and then 3 years later I trip and break my ankle. Is that the kind of karma he's talking about here?
Not in these notes, no. Rathbun is being much more specific and, frankly, much more immediate. He specifies that unlike civil law, which deals with actions in the physical world, spiritual karma exists specifically in the realm of emotion.
The realm of emotions. Wow, that is a huge distinction. So the police police our actions, but karma polices our feelings.
In a way, yes. It's the law of cause and effect applied directly to your internal state. Rathbun writes that spiritual karma is often unknown to many people.
Because it's invisible.
Right. We might be model citizens on the surface, never breaking a single civil law, paying our bills on time, perfectly polite, but we can be an absolute disaster regarding the spiritual karma because we're completely unaware of the emotional laws we're violating.
That's actually a little terrifying. You could be winning at life on paper. Great job. Clean record experience. But failing miserably at this deeper level.
You see it all the time. The highly successful person who is perpetually miserable and makes everyone around them miserable, that is a failure of spiritual karma.
Okay, so let's define the failure. What does bad karma actually look like in this framework?
This is where the text gets very practical. Rathbun defines bad karma as what happens when emotions become interfering in people, places, and things.
Interfering. I really want to stick a pin in that word. It's not just feeling angry or feeling sad. It's the act of interference.
Yes. Think about the energy behind the word interfere. It implies projection. It implies force. If you walk into a meeting and things aren't going your way, and you start seething, trying to mentally or even verbally force the other person to agree with you,
That is interference.
that is exactly it.
Or if I'm stuck in traffic, the place is the highway, the thing is the car in front of me. If I'm gripping the steering wheel, scream, just wishing the cars would vanish, I am trying to interfere with reality.
Exactly. You are resisting what is happening, and according to the source, that interference creates negativity. Rathbun describes bad karma as being dysfunctional and controlling.
Controlling, yeah.
And the consequence isn't that the universe strikes you down next week. The consequence is immediate. He says it results in resistance and an endless adversarial cycle with people.
Oh man, the adversarial cycle. That hits home. It's like when you come home stressed and you
Yeah.
snap at your partner. That's the interference. Then they snap back because they feel attacked. That's the resistance. And suddenly you're in a massive fight about dirty dishes that's actually just about your inability to process your own stress from work.
That is the cycle. You are trapped. And that is the bad karma. It's not a punishment for the act. The punishment is the cycle itself. You are stuck in a war with reality because you tried to control it with your emotions.
Okay, so that's the bad side. Emotional interference creates this messy adversarial loop. Now, usually when we talk about this stuff, the antidote is good karma. And in my head, good karma means being nice. It means smiling. It means being logical, being the adult in the room.
Well, buckle up because this is where Rathbun's notes offer a really counterintuitive perspective. This is the part that I think trips up a lot of smart, high-functioning people.
I am ready. Ruin my perception of being a good person.
Rathbun writes that when people act through intellectual reason or logic, bad karma becomes good karma, but only in an outward sense.
In an outward sense. That sounds like a backhanded compliment.
It's a massive trap. He's saying that if you suppress your messy emotions and switch to cold, hard logic, you look good to the world. You aren't screaming in traffic. You aren't throwing plates. You are following the rules of the societal matrix perfectly. You seem completely together.
But I sense a very large however coming right now.
A huge however. The notes say, however, people can still have unconscious and subconscious control issues, often operating unknown to a person with them.
Wow. Okay, so let me get this straight. I can be using logic. I can be winning the argument with facts and reason. I could be technically correct, but deep down, I'm still just trying to control the situation.
Precisely. You've just upgraded your weapon. You went from a bludgeon, which is the emotional outburst, to a scalpel, which is the logic. But the intent is exactly the same. Control. You want the world to fit your box. You want the other person to submit to your view.
That is insidious. Because logic feels so safe. It feels so undeniably right.
And that's exactly why it's dangerous. Rathbun points out that these control issues operate unknown to the person. You feel righteous. You think, I'm being reasonable. They are being emotional. So you never realize you're still stuck in the karmic cycle of interference. You're just interfering with a smile and a spreadsheet.
So outward good karma, being the logical, reasonable one, is basically just a camouflage for the same internal control issues. It hides the fact that you're still not actually free.
Right. You're still in the matrix. You're just winning the game, but you aren't outside the game.
This is a tough corner we've painted ourselves into here. If being an emotional mess is bad karma, and being a hyper-logical robot is just a trap of outward good karma, how do we actually get out? Where is the exit door in this model?
The text calls the exit waking up.
Okay, waking up. We hear that phrase a lot in spiritual circles, and honestly, sometimes it sounds a bit vague. How does Rathbun describe the actual mechanics of this shift?
It starts when those subconscious and unconscious drivers, those hidden needs to control, become consciously aware. It's about turning the lights on in the basement of your mind. The notes say that once a person starts to wake up, self-awareness teaches oneself to be mindful of what one says and does in one's life.
Mindfulness. Again, a word that gets thrown around constantly. But in this context, connected to that idea of interference, it sounds much more active.
It's a circuit breaker. Think of it that way. When you are truly mindful, you catch that interfering emotion before it turns into an action. You catch that sudden need to prove someone wrong with logic before you even open your mouth. Rathbun notes that this mindfulness limits karma's effect on one's life.
It stops the cycle before it starts. If I don't throw the punch, emotional or logical, the fight doesn't happen.
Exactly. You stop feeding the beast.
So mindfulness is the tool to stop the bleeding. But what is the destination? If I stop interfering, what kind of mind am I actually left with? The notes mention something called the individual mind.
This is the core concept of freedom in Rathbun's view. He talks about learning to detach from karma. And when you detach, meaning you are no longer reacting emotionally or controlling logically, you access your individual mind.
And what happens when you're there?
It's liberated, he says simply. You are no longer bound by it. You are no longer bound by the compulsion to react. And he lists two main benefits that are really beautiful. First, you find the freedom to evolve. You can actually grow because you aren't just repeating the exact same patterns over and over.
And the second benefit?
You learn to enjoy life.
Learn to enjoy life. It sounds almost too simple for a deep philosophical text. But when you really think about it, how hard is it to just genuinely enjoy life?
It's impossible if you're interfering. If you're at a dinner party and you're silently judging the food, that's the intellect interfering. Or if you're annoyed that the host didn't sit you where you wanted, that's emotion interfering. You aren't actually at the party. You're in your head, fighting reality. Detaching allows you to actually be there.
It reminds me of that saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, the interference is the suffering.
Exactly. And this state of the individual mind also completely changes how we make decisions. Rathbun writes that when you are in this state, you can clearly see the difference between a person involved in karma and a mind no longer in karma. You start to see who is reacting and who is actually clear.
And that clarity must change what you do next.
It frees you. He says you are then free to make choices for one's highest and best good in life.
Highest and best good. That feels very different from making a choice because you're angry or because you're scared or because you just want to look smart in front of your boss.
It's a responsive choice, not a reactive one. It comes from a place of peace, looking at the situation exactly as it actually is.
Now, there's a section in the notes here where Rathbun zooms out a bit, and he makes a pretty bold claim.
He does. He writes, it's very important for everyone to learn to see for themselves.
See for themselves. That implies that for a long time, maybe we haven't been doing that.
Well, look at the alternative he describes. He says, until you learn to see for yourself, you don't. It's binary. If you aren't seeing for yourself, you are left believing something is right in the world just because the world says so.
Or comparing off others.
Yes, comparing off something else in the world. And the danger there, according to the notes, is that we're comparing ourselves to things which we may or may not understand.
That is so incredibly relevant right now. I mean, think about social media. We scroll through feeds, constantly comparing our messy internal reality to someone else's curated, filtered external image. We are comparing off an illusion. We don't understand the reality of their lives at all, yet we judge our own based on it.
That is the ultimate trap of the societal matrix Rathbun is describing. We are outsourcing our understanding of good and bad to a system that doesn't even know us. We're letting the world tell us how to feel.
So Rathbun is basically arguing for a radical reclamation of internal authority.
He is. He says when we learn to see for ourselves, we enter a place in our mind that no one can teach us.
A place no one can teach us. That's empowering, but also a little daunting. It means there's no guru, no expert guide, no textbook that can just hand you the final answer.
Correct. He says it is an awareness that only we understand individually ourselves. It's experiential. I can describe the taste of an apple to you for hours. I can give you the chemical breakdown of the sugar, the exact texture of the skin, but until you physically bite into it, you don't know it. Rathbun is saying you have to bite the apple of your own life.
He even writes, anything can be presented to us from people or the world, but it is up to us individually as to whether or not we truly understand our experience of life. That's a heavy responsibility. It basically says, stop looking for validation out there. The only validation that actually matters is your own clear understanding.
It is the ultimate act of taking responsibility. You stop blaming the matrix, you start blaming the traffic, and you start looking at how you are perceiving it.
Okay, so we have the diagnosis. We're stuck in a matrix of emotional interference and logical control traps. We have the goal, the individual mind that sees clearly and can actually enjoy life. But how? Did Rathbun leave us with a practical tool, or is it just high hopes?
Thankfully, the notes are very specific here. He refers to a specific practice called Kelee Meditation.
And just for clarity, that's pronounced Kelee.
Kelee Meditation.
Okay, now there are a million meditation styles out there. What makes this one relevant to the specific problems we've been tracking today?
Well, the source defines its function very surgically. It says this meditation teaches people to detach from two specific things: the beliefs of the ego and the comparison process of the intellect.
Those are the two villains we've been talking about this whole time. The ego that gets offended and creates the bad karma, and the intellect that compares and controls, creating that deceptive outward good karma.
Exactly. A lot of meditation is about relaxation or focus, which is great, but Rathbun is suggesting a technique specifically designed to cut the fuel lines to those mechanisms, the ego and the intellect, that keep us stuck in the matrix.
And what is the result? If you successfully detach from the ego and the intellect, where do you actually land?
Rathbun says you get into a one-pointed mind.
A one-pointed mind.
Yes, and from that place, the mind sees clearly without the interference of non-understanding.
We're back to that word interference again. So the goal isn't necessarily to have no thoughts at all or to float away on a cloud of bliss. The goal is to see reality without our own baggage getting in the way.
To see clearly. And when you see clearly, you don't create that bad karma because you aren't projecting. You don't create those adversarial cycles. You deal with what is actually in front of you, not what you're afraid of or what you're trying to control.
It really connects everything we've talked about. You start by recognizing the matrix, the laws, and those invisible emotional rules. You realize that your bad moods are interference, and your brilliant logical arguments might just be control in disguise. And then you use this tool, Kelee Meditation, to detach from both so you can actually sit in the driver's seat of your own mind.
It's a journey from being unconscious to being conscious, from being a character trapped in the script to being the one observing the play.
And I think what sticks with me most is that the end point, it's about enjoyment. It's about getting your life back. We do all this self-improvement work, and we so often forget that the point is actually to enjoy being alive.
That's the real beauty of Rathbun's notes. He reminds us that the struggle, the bad karma, the interference is self-imposed. When you remove the interference, enjoyment is what remains naturally. It's the default state of a free mind.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to turn this back to you, the listener. The application is in your actual life. Think about your last week. Think about the moments where you felt stress or anger or just that tight, anxious feeling in your chest.
Ask yourself, was that bad karma in action? Was that an interfering emotion trying to control a person, a place, or a thing?
And on the flip side, and honestly, this is the harder question, think about the times you felt totally logical and right. Were you actually free? Or were you just using logic to maintain control over a situation?
It's a tough question to ask yourself, but it's the first real step to waking up.
Here is a final thought to leave you with. Something to mull over while you're maybe stuck in traffic or waiting in line today.
If the most important things can't be taught, but only understood individually, are you spending enough time listening to yourself? Or are you still spending your energy comparing off what the world tells you is right?
That is the question. The answers, it seems, are up to you to see for yourself. Thanks for diving deep with us today.